Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In the previous video, we learned about CSS selector basics. We have also talked about how to use ID selectors, class selectors, tag selectors, attribute selectors and multiple attribute selectors. Now today's session is very important upgrade from that because today we are moving from basic selectors to the advanced CSS selectors, the kind you actually use in the real projects. And let me be honest with you, in real automation frameworks, basic selectors alone are often not enough. So you will face situations where multiple elements look familiar, IDs are missing, classes are reused, and the attributes are partially dynamic. So this is exactly where advanced CSS selectors save you. So today we are going to talk about the parent-child relationship, the position-based selection, and powerful attribute matching techniques. So take your time, listen carefully, and try to visualize the DOM as we go. So let's begin. Okay, so before we touch any advanced selector, we need to talk about one important concept. So that is DOM hierarchy. So every web page is a tree. Okay, so there are parents, there are children, and there are siblings. Okay, so CSS selectors allow us to navigate this tree, but in a very structured and limited way. Okay, whereas XPath allows us free movement, CSS is stricter, but still it is faster. Okay, so if you talk about XPath, with XPath we can do forward as well as reverse traversal in the DOM. Okay, but in case of CSS, we can only go from parent to child. Okay, we cannot go from child to parent. Okay, so once you understand the rules, CSS selectors become extremely powerful. Okay, so let's start with the parent child selection. Okay, parent to child selection. Okay, so we have a practice website, and this is an example for expert accesses which we have used earlier, but now we will use the same example for the parent to child selection in case of CSS. Okay, so right click over it and inspect. Okay, so in the HTML we see there is a grandparent. Okay, and then if you go inside this div tag, you see there is a parent. Okay, and then at the same level we have parent sibling 1, parent sibling 2, and parent sibling 3. Okay, and then if you see inside the first parent we have child. Okay, so now if I want to navigate from grandparent to the child, I can write the CSS selector. Okay, so what I can do is, so I will just try to locate the grandparent first. Okay, and then we will go inside parent and inside the child tag. Okay, so again, as this is class, so first we will go with the shortcut, and then maybe we can check the extended part. Okay, so let's see. So as this is a class, and but for class we can simply use dot, right? So I can just simply use F here, control F, and then dot, and then add grandparent class attribute name. Okay, so now you see the grandparent is this element got selected. Okay, so now if we want to navigate to the child, okay, so again we have to go with the steps. Okay, so again go to the parent here, so we have a div tag. Now if you see, for the div tag we have if you only select div here, we have 4 occurrences. Okay, you see parent 1, parent sibling 1, sibling 2, and sibling 3. Okay, so again if you want to go inside parent 1, then what we need to do, we need to use this attribute to make it unique, right? So then what we can do is we can use this particular attribute, but again with the shortest way, what we can do, we can simply use dot class name, so you can simply use this dot parent. Okay, now we are at parent level. Now we need to go to the child. So for child we have a span tag, so we can do one thing, we can simply use span here. Okay, and then we are able to locate this element. Okay, so this is one way. And if you want to go with the unusual way, then that is like we can write a css for grandparent. So we have a class name, so simply add a div here, okay, and then we can add class and then simply add grandparent. Okay, so now with this we are able to locate this, and then if you want to go to the parent, you can simply add this. Again just add div here. Okay, if you add div, then you see there are 4 occurrences. So now again we need to explicitly mention the class name. So again go to this and then add class and then the class attribute name, which is parent. Okay, now if you want to go inside, then you can simply write child, and there is only one occurrence. So this should work fine. Okay, so this is how we can go from parent to child. But if you try to go from child to parent, it will not work. Okay, so the reverse will not work. Okay, so this is how CSS selectors are written in terms of parent to child selectors. Okay, the next is nth child selector. Okay, so we have another example for this. Let me show you that. Okay, so this is the menu navigation. Okay, so this selector is basically used when you want to select an element based on its position. Okay, so let's see, this is a menu navigation, and if you just go inside this UL tag, we have 3 li tags. So li tag class menu item, li tag class menu item, like everything has same data. Okay, and now we need to like if I want to select the second option, so how I can do that? So there is a function which we can use, that is nth-child. Okay, so again now I can locate it with the menu. So if you want to write a CSS selector for ID, then I can simply use hash and then menu. Okay, and then I should be able to locate that particular menu, right? Okay, so this is menu here, right? But yeah, again I can see 2 options here. So for this case, what we can do is you can simply add UL here, and then we should be able to uniquely identify it. Okay, so now you see, and then if you want to go inside, then what we can do, we can simply add space and then add the inside tag, that is the li tag. Okay, and then now you see there are 3 occurrences. If you want to go to the second occurrence, okay, so what we can do is we can add here the function colon nth child, and then we need to pass the particular index. So you see it is selecting the second one. So again the indexing will start from 1. It's not 0 based, it will start from 1. Okay, so if you want to select the first child, then you can pass 1, 2 and then 3. So this way it will work. Okay, so this selector is commonly used in menus, tables, list and repeated UI element. And here is the warning. Okay, so if the order changes, your selector will break. Okay, so let's say for example, if there is one more li tag will get added, and if you have used this kind of indexing with the help of nth child, your CSS will break. Okay, so use nth child only when the structure is stable and the position is predictable. Okay, now next is, let's move to the attribute matching selectors. Okay, and the first is starts with. Okay, so the like I can show you one more example. This is the input field example. Let's select this. Okay, we'll go to this particular reg username. Okay, this is reg username name. Okay, and for the email field we have name as reg email, and similarly we have one type text, but this is common, so I think we will not prefer it. Okay, so both the inputs for the name attribute will starts from reg. Okay, so we can write a CSS which will use starts with. Okay, this kind of attribute matching selector. Okay, so what we can do is we can simply add this unit like that, the input. Okay, so let's add input. again no slash needed for CSS, and then inside the square bracket we need to add the attribute name. Okay, and the symbol for starts with is a caret symbol. Okay, so you can add this caret or cap symbol, and then you can add the starts with text. So let's say for example reg. Okay, and then you see there are 4 elements. So you see even the radio buttons are using reg gender. Okay, and then reg gender, and then later we are using reg username and reg email. Okay, so in this way we can use starts with. Okay, so the symbol for starts with is the caret symbol. So this basically, this selector means select all the input elements whose name attribute starts with reg. Okay, so if you make it bit unique, let's say email. Okay, and then you will be able to see only one element is matching. Similarly, if you just change it to user, then it will again will match to the one element. Okay, so this is extremely useful when developers add prefixes like reg, user, auth, or temp. Okay, instead of writing multiple selectors, you write one smart locator. Okay, and the next is content selector. Okay, so basically content selector matches anywhere inside the attribute value. Okay, so let's see another example. Okay, let's move up and then we will see this interest principal example. Okay, so let's see this. Okay, this one. Okay, so we have input tag id attribute having principal name interest principal placeholder. Okay, so now we will try to write the CSS selector using contents. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so here again I will keep the input as tag as input. Okay, and then basically I will try to use this. Okay, because I'm trying to use content, so definitely I can use this. Okay, so just go with the placeholder. Okay, so let's copy the placeholder, and then I have input tag, just add placeholder. Okay, and then to use contains we have a star symbol. Okay, so you can simply add star symbol, and then you can pass the containing text. Okay, and then you see it's getting highlighted. Okay, so this means as long as the amount exists somewhere inside the name, this element will be selected. Okay, so that's why again this is powerful. So listen carefully. The contains is very flexible but also dangerous. So if multiple elements contain the same word, you might match the wrong element. Okay, so use contains only when nothing else is stable. Okay, and there is one more final selector, that is ends with. Okay, and for ends with we have symbol star, not star, dollar. Okay, so like this star we have dollar symbol. Okay, so here we have already used amount. So even if you use principal, it should work. Okay, principal, sorry, I'm adding wrong. Okay, again this is case sensitive, so make sure you are adding the correct name. Okay, so you are seeing if you even if you add principal, it will still match. Okay, if you will add enter principal, it will still match. Again p is small. Okay, you see it will match. Okay, but in case of ends with, now we will use the dollar symbol here for the ends with. If you use straight away like this, it will not work. So the last word is amount. Okay, so with amount it should work, and then you see with the amount it's working. So this is this text is ends with amount, so that's why it is working. Okay, so again this is helpful when developers append prefixes like id, value, then field or input. So anything which is added or appended as a suffix, in that case we can use ends with. Okay, it's cleaner than contains and safer when suffixes are consistent. Okay, So let's quickly compare these functions. First is start with, which is mostly prefix based, okay, and the contains, having the symbol as star. Again, contains works anywhere, and then ends with, which is suffix based, which is having symbol as dollar. So professionally speaking, starts with is safest, ends with is next best, and contains is the last option. So always try table pattern first. Okay, so in Selenium, all of these are used the same way. Okay, again, we can simply pass this selector in driver dot find element, and then we can simply pass by dot CSS selector, and then simply pass that particular CSS selector which we have written. Okay, and then again, if you want to add some value, then you can send keys. You can use send keys and pass the value. Okay, so Selenium does not care how complex it looks, as long as the CSS selector is valid, it will work. Okay, so let me warn you about some common mistakes. So the mistake one, writing very long CSS selectors. Again, this we have discussed in our earlier lecture also. So avoid long CSS selectors. Avoid overusing nth child. Okay, because if your if the childs are getting changed, or maybe if there are multiple rows getting added, definitely it will not work, or maybe it will not work as expected. Okay, mistake three, using contains when starts with would work. So again, go with the table priority first, that is starts with first, and then you can go with ends with, and then you can go with the contains. Okay, so always think, will this selector survive UI changes? If yes, then only go with that particular selector. Okay, so all right, let's wrap this up. Today we learned how to navigate parent-child relationships, how to select elements by position, and how to match attributes using starts with and ends with. Contains we have used. Okay, so these are real world selectors, these are framework level selectors, and these are frequently asked in interviews. Okay, so in the next video we will compare advanced CSS versus advanced XPath and decide which one to use and when. Until then, practice on real pages, inspect the elements, and write selectors manually. If you have any doubts, you can comment in the comment section. Okay, if you have, or if you want any additional topics to be covered, you can definitely comment, reach out to us. Okay, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next lecture.